I'm up here to testify today for, I guess, prior to or at the time of coming to the old church at Osgood. At that time, I was in the world doing a lot of different things. Mostly, I really like to smoke weed, and I would occasionally drink, and occasionally went on a date or two. Other than that, I just worked a lot, but I didn't. I went to church, but the church I went to at that time was different. The church, we would actually, after morning service, we'd go out to eat at Applebee's, might order a drink while we're there before we come back for afternoon service. Sometimes the women in church were the ones that you had the most interaction with, and it wasn't like for prayer or for reading the Bible. So it was just totally different. So before I came to Fire of God Church, my understanding of my responsibility and my accountability to God was totally different. I would pray over a meal, but I never prayed. I read verses in the Bible, but I had never read the Bible. For those who don't know, me and Deacon Jeremiah used to work together for Kaiser. And at the time when we kind of met or interacted with each other, we were both kind of going through something over females. And he was like a lot more looking for something than I was. I was just angry at the situation I had been put in, which was my own fault. Because God did warn me. And then I told God, don't worry about it. I got it. And then I ended up in a situation. When I met Deacon Jeremiah, he was talking to me about how, like, he was going to different places for prayer, and like he was really seeking God. And I didn't understand it. I didn't relate to it because I was like, God is here, right? Why we got to seek him? But he kept seeking God earnestly, and he was going different places to find what he needed to find. When he found it, it was Fire of God Church. And he came to me at work. He's like, man, I found this new church. You should come check it out. And I'm like, I'm good. Because I was still kind of mad at God that I say that he let the situation happen. But again, he warned me before the situation, and I ignored him. And part of that was my ignorance, because I had never really had an interaction with God before. So when I really had that interaction, I just act like it was just another casual moment. And now, like, I wish he would do that for me like he did that day. But he doesn't, probably because I didn't listen anyway. But when he told me about Fire of God Church, he told me to come, and I was like, nah, I'm good. And he continued to come and get deeper and deeper into Fire of God. And he met his wife, Janina, and he was telling me all the good news and all the blessings he was getting, but I wasn't interested. I was very angry. I was very depressed. I was blaming God for what the situation was I went through, and I just didn't want to talk. I probably didn't go to church for probably like close to 2 years. And at the time when the situation happened, I was in church constantly. I was an usher on the usher board, and I thought I was doing really well. And at my old church, the pastor would sometimes look at the congregation and say, who's going to heaven if God came right now? And like the whole congregation, even me, would raise our hand, yeah, I'm going to heaven, which is not true at all. I mean, it was far from it. Very deceived. So, again, Deacon Jeremiah kept working on me, come to the church. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. Because I was doing my own thing. I was smoking my weed, and I had very good scotch, like Johnny Walker Blue Label and other things, and I didn't drink to get drunk, but whenever I'd have a hard day, I would have a shot, just to have a drink. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. So I remember it was the first season the Warriors were going to the playoffs, and I had I hate to say it, but I had some really, really good weed. And I had some good alcohol. I'd already planned my day. I had everything set out in front of my TV. It was a nice day outside, and I was excited about the Warriors because, before Steph Curry, there used to be Run TMC, Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, and Chris Mullins. You guys probably don't know nothing about that, but they sucked. And so supporting them during all that time, I was excited that they had new life. And I wanted to watch, and I wanted to get high, and I wanted to have a drink and enjoy it. And all of a sudden, it was a Saturday, and my phone beeped, and I knew nobody was trying to reach out to me because I had closed myself off from people. I wasn't interacting with people. I wasn't responding to people. I just wanted to be left alone in my own space at that time. So when my phone made a little ring, I was like, what the heck? And I open it, and it's Deacon Jeremiah hey, we got church on Saturdays. And I'm like, this fool is texting me on a Saturday. Church is on Sundays, not Saturdays. I'm not going nowhere. And then I'm sitting there. I probably got 2 hours before the game or something starts. I haven't gotten high yet. I haven't drank yet. But I'm anticipating it. I'm waiting eagerly. So then my phone rings again. I'm like, what the heck? And he's like, you should come tonight. I'm like, this man, I almost text him man, leave me alone, okay? I'm not coming. But I don't know what I text him, but after I put my phone down, something inside him is you need to go. And I was like, what the heck? I already told you what I'm going to do. I'm not going nowhere. And again, I was just comfortable. I was in some sweats and a sweatshirt, I think, and some tennis shoes, because I wasn't going to do nothing that day. And then it said to me again, you need to go. Now, mind you, I live in Pittsburgh. The church was here in Fremont. So I'm like, I'm not driving that far. I'm staying home. And then I stopped responding to myself. I know that sounds crazy, but that's just how it works. And it just kind of grew. You need to go. And I probably contemplated maybe 20 to 30 minutes. And I don't remember what time he told me it started, but I know if I didn't get in my car and go right then, I wouldn't have went. So I got in my car. I drove all the way out to Fremont. And for those of you who don't know Osgood Church, it was more industrial than this area is, but it was kind of like this, a bunch of buildings, but they were smaller, and there was a whole bunch of them. So when I pull into the address that he gave me, I looked around, I'm like, this fool done gave me the wrong address. I done drove out here for nothing. And I was very angry. So I turned my car around, and I'm about to go out. Now, mind you, it's probably maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and church don't start till maybe 7 at that time or something like that. And as I'm driving out, I'm going home and smoking my weed, Deacon Jeremiah pulls in the parking lot with a big grin on his face. And he's like, hey. And I'm like, what the heck? So I turned around, and I go meet him. I'm like, what are you doing here so early? He's like, oh, me and my wife are on the worship team, so we come to practice. Had he not pulled in at that time, I would probably not be standing here right now this day. So he convinced me to stay, so I stayed. And I'm not going to lie, the whole time I was thinking about my weed and my alcohol at home, but I stayed. I met Pastor Steve and Pastor Eugene. At my old church, they didn't really pray in tongues, but there was a few people every time when they got touched or whatever you want to say, they would just walk around the church just oh, but I said, and I'd be scared, what the heck is wrong with these people? And then my cousin or my family member would be oh, they're speaking in tongues. I'm like, what the heck is that? They're right now they're feeling the Spirit. And But they don't just sit in their seat and do it. They like walk around the church like a crazy person doing it. So it was a little more intimidating. And then you had people who would, I don't know what you want to call it, but they would just start like, and then like the ushers would have to go stand around them with their hands, and somebody would fan them, and they'd be like, oh, and you're like, golly, what is going on? So it was a lot different. So when I came here, and they told me, oh, we pray in tongues. And I freaked. I was like, oh, my God, I've seen people do that. That's crazy. And they're like, no, it's part of what we do. And I'm like, oh, okay. So when it was prayer time, they turned off the lights, and it got dark, and that scared the mess out of me. I was like, these people going to kill me. I'm about to die. And Deacon Jeremiah walked me up to pastors, and they're like, can we pray over you? Now, mind you, at my old church, too, they'd say, the doors of the church is open. Anyone who needs prayer, come on down the front. And you walk up to the front, and the pastor and the preachers will all put their hands on you, and they'd say a prayer, and everything would be the same. You go out in the parking lot, smoke weed, you go have a drink, you meet one of the ladies from the congregation after church, whatever. Nothing changed. I don't even know, and I'm not trying to say it was like that for everyone, but for me personally, I never felt anything change during those moments. I never felt like a warmth or an inner voice or an urge or something to do anything different. And again, that's not saying it didn't work for others, but it didn't work for me. So when Pastors Steve and Pastor Eugene said, we're going to pray over you, I was like, okay, I've done this before. Here we go. Let's see what happens. And they said, whatever happens, just go with it. I'm like, what the heck's supposed to happen? So they started praying, and then I felt a chair come up behind me. I'm like, why are they putting a chair behind me? And then I don't know if he told me to close my eyes or I just closed my eyes on my own, but I know I closed my eyes, and then my arms started going up. And I was like, am I putting my arms up? Why is my arms going up? Why won't they go back down? And they're still praying over me, and then both my arms were out. And then I don't remember a lot, but I do remember telling them it hurts. It hurts. And Pastor Eugene was doing a lot of spitting. Pastor Steve was sweating. And I'm like almost in tears because my arms are up. Something is hurting over here and like my shoulder, chest area. I mean, it hurt. And all of a sudden, Pastor, so this started like maybe 9 o'clock. They started praying over me, and all of a sudden he touched me and goes, okay, it's time to go. I said, what? He goes, it's 12 o'clock, midnight. I'm like, what? So for almost 3 hours, I sat there with my arms up in the air. You couldn't pay me $1,000 to do it for 20 minutes right now, and it worked. And when I left, I called a person at the time I was kind of dating and said, we can't have sex no more. And she was like, what? I said, yeah, we can't do that no more. That's wrong. And I think she thought I was lying. And then even Amia's mom was still calling me sometimes. So she called. She's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm at church. She goes, no church goes at midnight. And I forgot something in there. So I went in there with her on speaker, and she heard, she's like, what the heck's going on? I'm like, they're praying. That's not prayer. I'm like, yeah, it is. So after that, I went home. I took all my weed and flushed it down the toilet. And I had a guy that was, we worked together, and we were kind of close, but our connection was weed. We'd go to the cannabis club together, and we see who gets the best weed, and we compare and hang out and smoke and shoot pool. And he called me probably like 3 or 4 days after that, and he's all, hey, what's up? Let's get together. I'm like, nah. He's all, what's wrong? I said, I don't smoke no more. He goes, what do you mean you don't smoke no more? I don't smoke weed no more. What'd you do with the weed we just bought? I flushed it down the toilet. Why didn't you give it to me? He got so mad. We haven't talked since that day, as a matter of fact. He never called me again. And then, like I said, I had a lot of good, expensive alcohol. I don't even want to go into detail, but it was very good. Some of them unopened. I did get to take some of them back to Costco, and I think I got like $1,100 or $1,400 back from Costco. And I took some to Sam's Club. Now, at Sam's Club, when you walk in with return, they're supposed to ticket it. So it was me, Amia, and I think her mom. We went to Sam's Club. I had like 2 bottles of this 25th anniversary silver Patron or something special. And the lady wouldn't ticket it. She's like, no, we don't take alcohol back. And she's giving me such attitude and embarrassing me in front of people that I started to respond. And Amia, at the age of like 8 or 10, said, it's okay, Daddy, come on, because she could see I was getting upset. So I just gave this lady a look like, ugh, and we walked into the store. I went to the return counter, even though she didn't ticket it. And when it was finally my turn, the lady says, oh, we don't take alcohol back. I said, okay, but I need to return this. She said, let me call the manager. She calls the manager, and I heard her on the phone say, do you want me to give him store credit? And she was like, I guess she said, no, give him his money back. She was like, I don't know how to do that. Next thing I know, this lady comes down, and she said, you know, sir, what's going on? I said, I can't drink anymore. God told me I can't drink. She walked over to the ladies' register, punched some numbers in, gave me my cash money in my hand, and took the bottles. I looked at that lady who wasn't taking it, and I went, ah. And then we walked around the store, and when I was getting ready to leave, I was still upset. So I went to the manager and I said, look, that lady wouldn't even ticket my returns, and she is embarrassing me in front of all these people. She goes, it's kind of a policy that we usually don't take alcohol back, but it's not a law. Don't worry, we'll talk to her. And I was like, okay. Same thing at Costco. When I first went up to the cash register, the guy told me, we don't take alcohol back. And I said, God told me I can't drink no more. Called the manager, boom. Gave him my $1,400 back. I donated, I think, half to the church. I didn't give it all to the church, but I gave half to the church. And I haven't had a drink or smoked since. So I started coming to church regularly, started learning how I have a responsibility to pray, I have a responsibility to read, a responsibility to, I don't want to say it's obey is the right word, but to kind of walk along, God's will, the will of Jesus. And as I did so, my life started to change. I started having more, I don't want to say understanding, but different situations. Just like if you heard me preach last night, things have been happening to me, and the reaction that I would have had back in those days are not the reactions I'm having now. I've learned now, I've matured now, I've changed now, and I think having that word elder before my name changes things too. It's funny because as a deacon, it puts a higher calling on you as well. But as a deacon, I was still ready to fight people in Costco parking lot. But as elder, I know that I'll be the one struck. I know that I'll be the one held responsible. I know that I have a lot of ground to lose now with as far as I've come and the way he's raised me up. Because it's not me. It was never like, oh, when I joined church, I want to become an elder, or I want to preach, or that was never my aspirations. I'm the guy who just wants to be in the back. I don't mind helping people. I don't mind doing things, but I don't want recognition. I don't want titles. I just want to just come and do what I do and bounce. But he keeps raising me higher and requiring more from me, and it's just something I'm starting to get used to and be thankful for. After all the things I've experienced here at church, it was funny too, because after Osgood, after they cured me from my addictions and my frolicking, I was on fire. I was going around telling people, man, God is real. There was an incident at Osgood, and I don't know if I really ever said it, but I was kind of sitting by myself over on one side, and it was tithing time. And I literally didn't have any money, no checks, nothing. And I closed my eyes and I said, Lord, if I had anything to give you, I'd give it to you. But I don't have no checks. I don't have no cash or nothing. Now, mind you, again, I'm over in the corner. Everybody else is on this side and coming to tithe this way. After I said my little prayer, I opened my eyes, and there's a $10 bill on my lap. And I'm like, where did this come from? And my flesh was like, put it in your pocket. I was like, yeah, we can spend this later. And it was like, okay, but where did it come from? And still to this day, I do not know where that $10 came from, but I put it right into the tithing box and said, thank you, Lord. So little things were happening that I couldn't explain, but I knew it was real for me. And I knew if I went and told people, dude, $10 came out of the air in my pocket so I could just give it to tithing, they'd be like, you're crazy. They wouldn't believe it. But when you experience it, when you're going through it, when you're a part of it, it does something for you and to you. It allows you to believe. It allows you to, you know how he says in the Bible, those who have seen and believe are good, but those who have not seen and believe are better. It's like we should believe even when we don't see. But when you see little miracles happening in your life, don't take it as a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. I know nobody came by and dropped. Nobody at that time when this church was that small had $10 to spare to just throw on my lap and pretend like, oh, we'll put it here. And nobody knew I didn't have money. Nobody knew I needed money for tithing. He's the only one who knew. And I you know, Pastor always says, what do you think? A suitcase of money is going to appear at your door? It could. You never know. But when it's happening, it motivated me. So as I'm going around telling people, hey, God is real, man. You guys, you need to get it together. They're like, oh, all you got to do is love people and be kind and you'll go to heaven. And I was like, that's not true. He has to know you. You have to do your part to get close to him. And after a while of the world telling me, oh, no, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true, it kind of took the motivation out of me. But I still made sure I focused on me and what I need to do. And so now, you know, Amia has graduated. She's made it through safely and unharmed. And my life has changed. I've now moved to Fremont, which I didn't want to do. I fought and kicked for a long time, telling Pastor, no, I'm not moving to Fremont. But once God changed my job, I had no choice. Oh, I mean, I had a choice. I could have commuted, but that's a long commute, and it's a hard one. So I was like, no, I'll just move. And he actually brought me to a Kaiser where the work is easier. Like, when I do a double at Fremont, it's not even like as hard as the 8 hours I did at Oakland. It was like triple the amount of work. So he not only rewarded me with a better job, but it's easier, it's less stressful, there's a lot more opportunity. And he brought me to the church for a reason, I guess, because he wanted me to be an elder, and who knows how much further he'll take me. And you know, soon I'll have a wife, a good wife. I know it started out different, but sometimes when you see things in the beginning, it's not what it is in the end. You know, a diamond actually starts off as coal, and then it becomes like invaluable as the pressure around it changes it to the diamond, and I think I got a diamond. I'm almost positive. So, I'm looking forward to our life together. I'm looking forward to what God has planned for me, and I'm looking forward to fulfilling it. Amen.